You're listening to the Life with Old Dogs podcast, and I'm your host, Dawn Memnaugh, primary caretaker of all of our wonderful senior German Shepherds right here at Woody's Place Senior German Shepherd Sanctuary. Hey there, and welcome back. So, two things right off the bat. The last episode and this episode, I did not video record. I only did audio for the last one and for this one. I just don't love the audio quality when I do the video and put it on YouTube. So, I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And I will certainly look into it before we start next season. But this podcast episode and the one prior to this are audio only. Also, I have little Brandy right here beside me as I'm recording. She's right here on her bed beside me. She is having a tough time, folks. Tough time for Miss Brandy, and I'm sad because I can tell that, she doesn't have too many days ahead of her. She's struggling right now, and I'm keeping a close eye on her. So you may hear her. She may get up. She may walk around. She's, panting a little bit. So you may hear her. So I'm just letting you know. This is Life with Old Dogs, and hey, she's an old dog, and really, this is what it's all about. So you may hear her in the background. All right, so this is Season 5. This is our last episode for Season 5, and we have been talking about caring for yourself while caring for your German Shepherd, and the second part here to this season has been geared toward your older German Shepherd, their physical health, their mental well-being, mental stimulation. And then in this podcast episode, I'm going to be touching base on their diet. Now, when I say touching base, I do mean just that. I'm not going into depth about specific diets that we use here for specific residents. That is going to be a whole podcast season in and of itself. But I feel that it is important that we do talk about it to some degree in this season here, since it all ties together with the overall well-being of your older German Shepherd. All right, diet it's so huge. It's so huge for us. It's so huge for our older German Shepherds in keeping all of us thriving. So, like us, if we constantly are grabbing for empty calorie, junky foods that are highly processed, loaded with sugar, additives, preservatives, pre-processed crap. If we're constantly grabbing for that, we're setting ourselves up for health issues, disease, inflammation, diabetes, all kinds of stuff. It's no secret. It's no secret. And it is the same for our older German Shepherds. If we are constantly feeding them high processed kibble out of a bag, high processed junky milk bones from a cardboard box. And I'm sorry, folks, if you're feeding your dog that, I just don't know what to say, except for you're not doing your older German Shepherd any favors at all. I can distinctly remember when we first got Atticus 4 years ago, December 2018, and what a shit show he was. Sorry for the language, but he was horrible. Horrible condition, horrible allergies. I mean, his skin is ruined. he has hair that has never grown back, that I still am constantly fighting open sores on those areas because his skin is, I don't want to say it's beyond repair, but by the time we got him, he was 9 years old and he had already lived 9 years on crap food out of a bag from a grocery store and milk bones. And I'll never forget walking into his house where he lived before and seeing the giant box of milk bones on top of the refrigerator and thinking to myself, yeah, any dog that I've known that's been their treat, so to speak, their whole lives, wasn't really what I would say was thriving. They're just loaded with junk. It would be like feeding your child or your grandchild, Oreo cookies all the time. It's junk. It's junk. And that's not to say that they can't have it every once in a while, but it should not be something that they should be consuming all the time. So I couldn't wait to get Atticus. I remember his person actually, tried to send some of the milk bones. And I think I took them just to be nice, but I threw them in the trash, or I forget what I did with them. Sometimes I, get stuff like that and I'll just throw it back in the woods for some wild animal to eat or whatever. But my point is, I couldn't wait to get him away from his heavily processed, junk-filled diet so his body could start to heal, so the inflammation could start to calm down, so his gut health could start to, be filled with healthier bacteria as opposed to bad bacteria, and so his skin could heal and everything else, because he was just a hot mess. He was an absolute hot mess. And is he perfect now? No, he's definitely not perfect. But is he, 80% better, 85% better than what he was when he got here? Yes, he is. And at this point, that's really all I can hope for, because a lot of the damage has already been done. But anyway, enough of that. Real food, real whole foods is what we do here at the sanctuary. And that is not to say that the residents here don't get kibble, because they do. Now, I try to choose a high quality kibble, because there are some really crappy kibble and there is some not so crappy kibble. Any kibble that you're getting for your older German Shepherd is highly processed. It is cooked at such a high temperature. That's what, takes all the moisture out and makes it like that hard, crunchy cereal-like stuff. That in and of itself is a carcinogen. Okay? It would be like us char-broiling burgers and hot dogs on our grill every night, which is not good. That's not good for us. That's something we can do every now and again, and it's not a problem. But to do it every night or even twice a day, like some of our dogs get fed twice a day, we feed the residents here twice a day. I know there's some talk out there that that's not such a good idea, that it should just be once a day, because they should go into like the starvation mode in between, so that their intestines, if there is any inflammation, can, help that calm down and all that stuff. I can't do that. We have residents here who they start vomiting bile, just, having GI upset and all that stuff if they don't eat twice a day. So definitely don't do the once a day thing. But if you do that with your dog, that's fine. There's no problem with feeding a dog once a day if that dog can handle it. I just have found that the German Shepherds in my care, the older German Shepherds in my care, and maybe it is because they are all seniors, I'm not sure, they do better with being fed twice a day. But we do real whole foods as often as possible. And I started out doing, it was like an 80-20 split. where 80% of the time they were getting kibble and, home cooked on top, or kibble and, high quality wet food on top. And then 20% of the time they were just getting home cooked. And then it went to 70-30. And now I'm probably right around 50-50. And my goal at some point is to be 100% home cooked, whole foods, and no kibble. Just not there yet. It's a balancing act. Life with old dogs, sanctuary life, all that stuff, running the shepherd shop, taking care of a house and a property with other, farm animals, and working in between. There's a lot going on there. So someday in a perfect world, I won't have to do all of that, and I can just focus then on cooking and making whole food recipes for the residents of Woody's Place. But right now, I'm a work in progress, and I'm about 50% right now. 50% real whole food, and the other time it is still kibble. I use Fromm, FROMM, kibble for the dogs, and I will use Fromm canned if what I consider a cheat night. I do have cheat nights here and there where they're just getting Fromm canned food, or like I said, Fromm kibble with canned on top. And I really don't see a problem with that. It's, to me, it's like, again, my kids are all grown up. So I have 5 children, but they're all grown up. They're 27 to 36 years old. But when my kids were little, I cooked for them. I cooked for them all the time. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, I cooked for them. And every once in a while, like once a week or something like that, we cheated and we went to McDonald's, or we went to Friendly's or something along those lines. And I don't see any problem with that. It is about balance, and it is about moderation. And so for the dogs here, yeah, sometimes we just have a cheat night. They're just getting kibble with canned on top. Sometimes, as many of you know, sometimes I'll even run through the McDonald's drive-through and get plain cheeseburgers, and they all get a plain cheeseburger, and that's every once so many months, and they all love it. Other times I'll be in Sam's Club and I'll get their store brand frozen chicken nuggets, and I'll bring them back here and, cook them up for the dogs and give them some as a treat. And they like that as well. And then other times I'm making my own chicken nuggets here for the residents. So again, it is a balancing act, but we're talking about diet. And again, I try to do real whole foods as often as possible. So what am I talking about? Real whole foods. Well, I try to keep this as simple as possible. And oftentimes when Mr. Woody's Place and I are having our meal, let's just say we're having mashed potatoes and meatloaf and carrots. Let's just say that's our dinner one night. Well, instead of buying 1 pound of ground beef and making a teeny tiny little meatloaf and, maybe cutting up 3 or 4 potatoes and boiling them and making mashed potatoes and paring a couple of carrots and, seasoning them and cooking them and making this one meal for Mr. Woody's Place and I, nope, I buy like 10 pounds of ground beef, and I will pull some aside to make that meatloaf for Mr. Woody's Place and I. But then I take the other ground beef, let's just say, the 9 pounds that's left, and I cook that up for the Woody's Place dogs. A lot of the time I'll put it in a slow cooker. Sometimes I forget to put it in a slow cooker, and I'll just divvy it up and take some out, for one meal and fry it up in my cast iron pan. I'll I'll throw some potatoes in there that are cut and cubed already. Sometimes they're even mashed already, but they're plain. They're plain. Like for Mr. Woody's place and I'll dress them up some with different things to make them tasty for us. But for the dogs, they're just plain. So I'll put those mashed potatoes in. Once the ground beef is browned, I'll put the potatoes in, again, whether they're cubed or mashed, and I'll just throw them in there. And the carrots, same deal. They're already cut. They're just not seasoned. They don't have butter on them or anything like that. Same deal. I'll just throw them in the pan. I may put some bone broth in there. I may put some golden paste in there. I may just put some beef broth in there. And I give it to the dogs then. That's what they get. Now, what if it's not nutritionally balanced? How do you know if it's nutritionally balanced? And I think this is the thing that scares the people the most. There's two things that scare people the most about, well, actually a few things that scare people the most about feeding human grade food to their dog. Number one, they're afraid they're going to give them something that's going to make them sick. So you have to know literally like what you cannot give your dog. Like you can't give them like a whole onion. You can't give them pecans. You have to know. You have to know what your dog can have and what they can have. The other thing is, what about raw? I mean, there's so much talk about how great a raw diet is for your dog, and I'm not disputing that. But I'm also not comfortable with it because they can get salmonella and E. coli just like we can. And I have given raw meat to residents over the years, and a couple have gotten sick from it. One even got HGE from it, what I believe was from the raw meat. And I'm just not comfortable with that. So I prefer to cook. Now, you don't want to cook the crap out of it. You don't want to cook a whole bunch of nutrients out of the food. You don't want to cook it at a high temperature really fast. Really, if you can home cook for your dog and put it in a slow cooker, that they're going to get the most nutrients out of that, and it's the easiest for you. I mean, think about it. If you go to the store and you get some stew meat, and you put those cubes of stew meat in your Instapot or crock pot, and you throw some potatoes in there and some carrots in there, just like you're making a stew or something like that. But you don't want to, like I said, doll it up with a bunch of, gravies and stuff like that. And you let it cook for several hours and then just ladle that out over your dog's kibble or directly in their bowl without any kibble. Trust me, they are going to gobble it up. It's going to be the best day of their life, and it's good for them. So people get nervous about that because it's not nutritionally balanced, or it might not be nutritionally balanced, and they don't want to make their dog sick. Well, there are ways around that. I mean, Dr. Karen Becker has a great product. It's called Meal Mix, and it's a white powder that you can home cook for your dog, for your older German Shepherd, and put this powder on top of the food, mix it in. Your dog won't even know it's there. And voila, that meal is now nutritionally balanced. So that's fantastic, right? So people are definitely concerned about that, getting their dog sick, and is it nutritionally balanced? They're like the big things right there. And also how much. Some people don't know how much to give their dog. So again, this is all going to be a podcast season in and of itself, talking about how to balance the meals, what foods you can give your dog, what foods you shouldn't give your dog, organ meats, how often should you give that to your dog, how to make sure it's nutritionally balanced, all that good stuff. But that's not this podcast episode right here. All right, so real food, real whole foods, okay, that hopefully have been cooking in a slow cooker. so that they can get the most nutritional value out of it. And you're looking at meats, okay, lean meats, chickens, turkeys, beef, duck if you can, pheasant if you can, venison if you can, fish. You can give your dogs fish. I typically don't give them just fish because quite a few of them here just kind of snub their nose up to fish. So I when I am giving a fish, I try to mix it in with something that they're really, really going to like, because we don't have too many fish foodies here, but it is good for them. Organ meats. That's another, powerhouse. It's densely packed with nutrients and proteins and great fats and all kinds of vitamins, vitamin A, B, D, E. Oh my gosh, it has CoQ10 in it, which is an antioxidant, which is great for their joint health and heart health and lowering cholesterols and omega-3 fatty acids. Again, heart and brain health. You can't go wrong with giving your dog organ meat, except for you can give your dog too much organ meat. You don't want to do that. It should never be any more than 10 to 15% of their diet. Now, what is organ meat? Well, I mean, it's typically like what we don't like to eat. It's whether it's a chicken or whether, it's beef. Basically, it's the liver, it's the heart, it's the kidneys. For grazing animals like cow and sheep and goats, that's the tripe. That's it's the muscle lining of the stomach. Tongue. That's another one. That's a good one for our pets. So organ meat is absolutely phenomenal for us, even though we don't really like to eat it. But it's great for our dogs too, and they are going to gobble it down. I mix in organ meat with whole cooked real food or home cooked real food for the Woody's Place residents, and I also dehydrate it. So I have a dehydrator. If you are looking to start making food and treats for your older German Shepherd, I would strongly suggest looking into getting a dehydrator. They're worth their weight in gold. And if you don't want to spend the money on it, you can even use your own oven. It's just your oven's going to be on for hours. I mean, like 6 to 8 hours at like 250 degrees. So that could use a lot of energy, and it could heat up your house on a day that you really don't want that unwanted heat. But I will buy chicken liver. So there's lots of butchers around here. Again, I live in an agricultural area. It's a rural agricultural area, and we have, no shortage of butchers and stuff like that here. Meat stores and mom pop meat stores and butchers and things of that nature. And so I can always find chicken liver, chicken hearts, stuff like that. But I like chicken liver for the dogs for treats. So what I do is I'll go and I'll buy the chicken liver, and then I'll put it on the special trays that I have for my dehydrator, and I'll put it on in the morning. Yeah, I want to say probably like about 8 o'clock. I'll probably get enough to pop in like about 3 trays of chicken liver, and they dehydrate all day long. And this sounds so bizarre, but when I tell you, I've had people come to the sanctuary and say, "Are you making chocolate?" And I say, "No, I'm dehydrating chicken liver." I swear to God, it smells. The whole house smells so sweet, like it's chocolate. It's the weirdest thing. It's chicken liver. It's weird. But anyway, once they're finally dehydrated, then I let them cool, and then I put them in a airtight container, and then I just give them out as treats, whenever. But again, you have to be careful doing that. You can't give them too much, because organ meat is one of those things where too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And of course, you can also mix the organ meat in with any whole home cooked food recipe that you make. All right. Another thing that I love to do is add fruits and veggies to their food. So they're kind of picky. Yeah, I have a picky crew here right now. They're kind of picky about their fruits and veggies, and I don't shove a whole lot in there. I mean, they need fiber, obviously, and but again, I don't want to give them too much because I don't want them getting diarrhea from it. So I don't give them a whole lot, but honest to goodness, if I put like blueberries in their food or something, they know. So I have to mush it up pretty good. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. So definitely fruits and veggies. Again, you have to be careful about certain fruits and veggies. Certain, they can get an upset stomach from certain fruits and veggies, so you have to be careful. Peas is a veggie I try to avoid. Occasionally, if we're having peas, I'll give them some peas, but not really. I have some residents here with pea allergies, and in processed dog food, pea protein is used frequently. Peas are used frequently. I can't even remember which brand of Kibble dog food it was, and this was a couple years back. I want to say probably about 3 or 4 years back, and there were like 6 different peas, like not peas, but there were 6 different ingredients in this bag that were pea related. I was just thinking like pea powder, pea protein, just straight up peas, it's like, Jesus, what are we giving them? Are they getting peas or are they getting, what are they getting? It's just peas, really. So no, I don't really do peas too much. Again, I have some residents here that are allergic to peas, and I really look at peas as like a filler in Kibble. So I don't know why. I don't know. Picking on peas. I should stop. There's nothing wrong with peas. I like peas. Anyway, my point is some fruits and veggies. Get them in there. Now, what about rice? Well, I do use rice. I use brown rice, but I don't use it often. Not really sure there's a big need for rice in their diets. I will use it if they're having issues with like bowel movement and stuff like that, but I don't use a whole ton of brown rice. I like quinoa. I'll put quinoa in their food. Lentils, I'll put lentils in their food. But again, things like that, it's minimal. I do incorporate carbohydrates in their food, but I really try to focus on the protein and fruits and vegetables and organ meat. All right. Something else that I use regularly for the residents here of Woody's Place is raw goat's milk. So we do have goats. They're not always producing goat's milk, but there's a lot of people with goats here in my area. But again, sometimes goat's milk is hard to get depending on the time of year. So we use raw goat's milk. If you're not in an area where you can get raw goat's milk, there's a product called Boss Dog Raw Goat's Milk. And I love this stuff. And you can look it up online. And in fact, I'll put their website in the show notes. This is no affiliation. Okay. It's not like, I'm getting paid to say this. I truly love their product. It is the real deal. It'll come to you frozen. You can buy it in pet food stores. Again, if you go to their website and you look up store locator, you can find out where you can buy it. You could buy a smaller bottle. You could buy a bigger bottle, depending on how often you're going to use it or how many dogs you have. But Boss Dog raw goat's milk, again, is the real deal. Now, you can get like powdered supplement through, online or whatever. I don't really think. I used to get that before I knew better, but no, there's a big difference. There's just a big difference. It's like drinking whole milk and then thinking soy milk is the same thing. It's just not. It's just not. So you don't want to rip your dog off of the benefits of raw goat milk. So get the real deal. And again, if you're not in an agricultural area with, goats running around all over the place, Boss Dog raw goat's milk. So let me tell you why I use it. First and foremost, every single one of the residents love it. They love it. So it keeps them hydrated, right? That's the main thing right there. It keeps them hydrated because sometimes older dogs don't drink as often as they should. Maybe they're hurting and they don't want to get up to walk over to their water bowl. Or maybe they're on medication for some reason and they're kind of lethargic and don't realize that they're getting dehydrated. So they're just laying down. And the water's really not enticing them too much. Goat's milk will. They all love goat's milk here. Like I said, there's never an empty bowl when I put goat's milk down. And some of them get it every day. Some of them get it a couple times a week. Some of them get it every other day. Depends on the particular dog. But goat's milk, benefits of goat's milk. There's lots of probiotics in goat's milk, which is great for your older German Shepherd's gut health. Okay, 80% of the immune system lives in the gut, and we want that to be as optimum as possible. And prebiotics and probiotics are going to help you with that. There's DHA, and as we all know, DHA is great for heart health and brain health. So if you have an older German Shepherd who's having some cognitive issues, give them goat's milk, right? It has the DHA in it, and it will help with their brain health. And then it also has taurine in it, which is in meat as well. So for those of you who don't know, dogs need taurine. It keeps diseases at bay, and it can help regulate the blood flow and improve brain health and promote heart health. And it also strengthens their muscles. So a lot of older German Shepherds, their muscles start to waste away. They may atrophy even in the back end. You see that a lot in older German Shepherds. They get little chicken butts, like they still have that big chest and their back end is just atrophied and withered away. So taurine helps with that. And it is in goat's milk. It's good for the digestion, and it's loaded with fatty acids, which is great for their coat as well. And again, it keeps them hydrated. Where water, they might not want to drink it, but they'll want to drink goat's milk. Now, sometimes with little Miss Brandy here, she's gotten so picky, so darn picky. And she was never a picky eater, but she's gotten so picky. I play this game. What's Brandy going to eat today? Because one day she'll do so good with whatever I'm giving her, and then the next day she turns her nose up at like, how dare you put this in front of me? This is gross. One day she'll eat off a plate. She hasn't eaten out of a bowl for a long time, but one day she'll eat off a plate. Another time I'm trying to feed her off a silicone spoon. Another day I'm literally just putting food in my hand and giving it to her, and she eats it off my hand. Goat's milk, she does like the goat's milk, but I warm it up for her a little bit. I don't want to warm it too much again because I don't want to take away any nutrients from it, but I do warm it up a little bit, just a little bit above room temperature for her, because she seems to want to drink more of it. I don't have to fight with her as much if it's warmed just a little bit, but that's where I'm at with her. So, and I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure, if you have an older German Shepherd and they're geriatric like her, again, she's 14 plus now. It can be tough. It can really, really be tough with that whole "what are we going to eat today" thing. So if you're to that stage and you've been doing kibble and canned, I would implore you, please start incorporating real food. If you're doing kibble, incorporate some real food. Put some beef cubes in there. Cook up some beef cubes, cut them up into smaller pieces, and put some beef cubes on top of their food. A couple of things here. Here's one thing that really gets me over the years, and I've heard this so many times, where you see this poor dog, people are eating and this poor dog is begging, and you hear someone say, "Oh, what a beggar." Oh my gosh. Yeah, because that dog's been basically eating crap its whole life, and it knows what its body needs, and what its body needs is real whole food. It's begging. It's sad. Give it what it needs, please. The other thing is for the Woody's Place residents, if it's like ground beef or something like that, and again, plain mashed potatoes, it's going right in their bowls. If I'm using if I cooked a roast or something along those lines, or if it's chicken breast, like big pieces of chicken breast, like I just cooked this week, I will cut them up into smaller pieces, and then I'll put them in the food processor with, the carrots or whatever else it is that I'm using, blueberries. That's how I sneak that's when I sneak blueberries in. I'll put them in my food processor, and I'll just process it. This is good for two reasons. It helps for dogs with digestive issues. It helps them digest the food better and absorb the nutrients better if it's already processed, so to speak. I mean, think of it like baby food. Babies don't get hunks of meat; they get food that's already been pureed and processed. So it's the same for older dogs, and also, their teeth might not be as great, and they can't really chew the way they used to when they were younger. Maybe their teeth hurt, and if you give them this big hunk of meat, basically they're just swallowing it whole, which who the heck wants to do that? So process it a little, or if you don't have a food processor, just, take the time, cut it up into little tiny pieces, again, like like you're trying to give it to a baby. So that's why I'll put bigger pieces of meat and whatnot in the food processor. Again, it helps with digestion, and older dogs who have bad teeth or teeth that are hurting, it makes it easier for them to chew and absorb the nutrients, which is what you want them to do. And the other thing about this is, let's just say you have a big piece of chicken breast, right? You got a big piece of chicken breast, and you have some blueberries, and maybe you have some oats, like real oats, not what's it called? The stuff that comes in the packages that's flavored or whatever. I'm talking about just real plain oats. If you put all of that in a food processor and you mix it up, you can make treats out of that. Okay, you can literally make treats out of that. Make tiny little meatballs, or if you have silicone molds, you could put some in a little silicone mold. Even throw a little coconut oil in there, like liquefy the coconut oil in there, and put a little bit in with the mixture, the meat and the oats and the whether it's blueberries or even carrots or something like that. and cook that in the oven at a low temperature just for a little while. Then the next thing you know, you have treats. There you go. They had a meal or a few meals out of that mixture that you made, and they have a few treats too. You keep them in the refrigerator and use them up within a certain amount of time. But this is healthy for them, and it's real food that their body needs. I sound like a broken record, and I'm gonna stop here shortly. But our older German Shepherds need real food. Okay, I can't stress that enough. They need real food. They were not meant to live off of hard, crunchy kibble crap in a bag their whole lives. I've said this before. It would be like you eating the same box of cereal every day from the time you're born, every day, every meal throughout your whole entire life. You're not going to get your nutritional values met by doing that. And your body is going to decline because it's going to be loaded with inflammation and disease probably. So our dogs are the same way. Just look at that bag of food as a box of cereal and ask yourself, would you want to eat that every single day for every single meal your entire life? The answer is no. Well, they don't want to either. And they shouldn't. We've been conditioned to believe this is what we should do for our dogs because these big companies, and there's only so many big companies that own most of the dog food brands that you're buying in the store and online and stuff like that. And basically, their marketing is so wonderful, and the packaging that they have in the stores really has us all convinced that we're doing the best thing for our older German Shepherd if we just spend $100 on that bag of, cereal off the shelf and take it home and give it to our dogs. No, I'm telling you, it's wrong. It's wrong. I'm going to leave you with this. My parents are in their 70s. Okay, they're mid 70s. And when my parents were young, my mom, anyway, I don't know about my dad, but my mom, they didn't have commercial brand dog food back then. Okay, she's in her mid 70s now. They did not have commercial brand dog food back then. And their dogs ate whatever the humans in the house were eating. And I can guarantee you everything was home cooked because my mom home cooked for us and her mom home cooked for them. Like there was no running to McDonald's or anything along those lines. I mean, they made everything from scratch, and those dogs ate whatever the family was eating. The other thing that happened back then is they didn't run the dogs to the vets every year to get over-vaccinated. And the dogs lived longer. The dogs lived longer back then because they were having their nutritional needs met and they weren't being over-vaccinated. And that's what we need to get back to, folks. I am a firm believer in that. And if you have watched me with the Woody's Place residents for any length of time, you have seen some of these dogs come in here looking god-awful, just god-awful. And I'm able to turn that around because it all starts with real food and giving their bodies exactly what they need, what they're craving for, and I don't think they should be deprived of that. All right. So that's all I have for this this podcast episode right here. I hope you get something out of it. If you take anything away from this, start giving your dog real food. Real food. Just start with meat. Cook up some ground meat. Drain the fat. Cook up some ground meat. Put it on top of your dog's food. Put if you have a big dog, if you have a German Shepherd, an older German Shepherd, and it's an 80-pound German Shepherd, and you give your dog, I don't know, a cup of kibble at night, do yourself a favor. Put half a cup of browned ground beef on top of that food. Make sure it's not super hot. You don't want them to burn their mouths. Let's use common sense and make sure you drain the fat. Mix it in with that kibble and watch them go to town. Watch them go to town. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, wow. Because your dog is craving that. And your dog is starving for that because your dog knows what it needs. All right. So let's start giving them what they need. And once they start getting what they need, then, we can try to stave off disease and inflammation and all that stuff for as long as possible. All right. So that is it for this season. All right. We're done season 5 now. I am going to be on here next week. All right. Before we start season 6, I am going to be on here next week. About 3 weeks ago, there was something put up on social media about Ask Me Anything in regard to sanctuary life and life with old dogs. And quite a few of you responded. I don't know if I'm going to get to every single question, but I certainly will try. But that'll be next week, right? I'll be answering some of those questions next week. All right, folks. Until then, be well.